The race for the White House, and tonight Donald Trump speaking about retribution and revenge, saying sometimes revenge can be justified.
Tonight, in a move that's sending shockwaves through the legal world, President Donald Trump just pulled the trigger on one of his most controversial orders yet, canceling security clearances for key lawyers linked to Russiagate and January 6. Is this a long-awaited reckoning or a dangerous abuse of power? The story behind Trump's stunning retaliation and what it means for the future of American justice, coming up. Just days ago, Trump signed an executive order revoking security clearances for employees of the powerhouse New York law firm Paul Weiss. This isn't just any law firm. Paul Weiss has been tied to Democrats who've come after Trump for years, from Russiagate to the January 6th protests. And this isn't Trump's first strike. It's the third time he's targeted major U.S. law firms in just a few months. But why now? And what's behind Trump's war on the legal world? To find out, we'll be taking a time capsule back to 2016.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just another excuse. I don't believe it. I don't know why. And I think it's just, they talked about all sorts of things. Every week it's another excuse. We had a massive landslide victory, as you know, in the Electoral College. I guess the final numbers are now at 306, and she, down to a very low number. No, I don't believe that at all.
Back in 2016, the political landscape was on fire. The mere mention of Russiagate was enough to ignite furious debates across the country. At the center of it all, Donald Trump. Accusations swirled that his campaign had colluded with Russian operatives to sway the presidential election. It felt like a scandal pulled straight from a political thriller, complete with secret meetings, leaked emails, and a media frenzy that didn't seem to be dying down anytime soon. The pressure was relentless. Special counsel Robert Mueller launched a 2-year investigation that turned Washington upside down. Every move was scrutinized, every word dissected. And when the dust finally settled, Mueller's report landed with a thud, a 448-page doorstop of legal jargon and redacted text. The conclusion? No criminal conspiracy between Trump's campaign and Russia. To his supporters, it was vindication. To his critics, it was a bitter pill to swallow. But the damage had been done. The investigation had already painted Trump as a man perpetually under suspicion. Trump never let go of the idea that the investigation was a politically motivated witch hunt, a vendetta orchestrated by the so-called deep state. And one law firm, in particular, caught his eye: Paul Weiss. Now, Paul Weiss isn't just any law firm. It's a titan in the legal world, representing some of the most powerful people and corporations on the planet. But what really put them on Trump's radar was their connection to key figures involved in the Russiagate saga, especially Mark Pomerantz. Pomerantz was a veteran prosecutor who joined the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to help investigate Trump's finances. To Trump, it felt like déjà vu. The same people who were once tied to investigating him over Russia were now digging into his business empire. And when Pomerantz eventually left the DA's office and returned to Paul Weiss, it looked suspiciously like a revolving door between law and politics. For Trump, this wasn't just about legal strategy, it was personal. He saw Paul Weiss as part of a broader network of political enemies determined to take him down. So, when Trump became the 47th President of the United States of America, most people expected a strike back, especially considering the president's petty nature. But Paul Weiss wasn't the only target. Trump's response took aim at other law firms that had tangled with him in the past, like Perkins, Coie, and Covington and Burling. Perkins Coie had its own baggage. It was linked to the infamous Steele dossier, a document that fueled the early stages of the Russiagate investigation. And Covington and Burling, they represented high-profile Democrats and government officials who had criticized Trump during his presidency. In Trump's mind, these firms weren't just legal adversaries. They were political operatives masquerading as lawyers. And he was going to set an example. But the question most were left wondering after his election was, how? Well, they didn't have to ask for too long, because President Donald Trump, now in his second term, has made headlines once again with a controversial executive order targeting New York law firm Paul Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton and Garrison, Paul Weiss. Signed on Friday, the order suspends security clearances for lawyers and employees at the firm, and restricts their access to federal buildings and officials. The order also mandates the termination of any federal contracts in which Paul Weiss has been hired to provide services. According to the White House, the suspension will remain in effect pending a review to determine whether maintaining these clearances aligns with the national interest. The decision to revoke the firm's security clearances comes from a series of perceived conflicts and alleged misconduct that Trump and his administration have publicly condemned. Trump singled out Paul Weiss due to its connections with high-profile Democrats and its involvement in legal actions against him, including the infamous Russiagate collusion investigation and pro bono cases related to the January 6th Capitol riot. One of the primary reasons Trump targeted the firm was its hiring of attorney Mark Pomerantz, a former partner who played a role in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office investigation into Trump's business affairs. Pomerantz eventually rejoined Paul Weiss after leaving the DA's office, raising suspicions among Trump's inner circle. Additionally, Trump criticized the firm for allegedly undermining the judicial process, promoting harmful practices, and discriminating against employees based on race and other prohibited factors. Trump accused Paul Weiss of participating in legal activities that not only threaten public safety, but also burden local businesses and weaken constitutional freedoms. He argued that the firm's involvement in criminal cases connected to the Capitol riot and associations with Democratic figures amounted to government sponsorship of harmful activity. Furthermore, Trump alleged that the firm's practices violated civil rights laws by making employment decisions based on race and sex, a claim Paul Weiss firmly denied. This isn't Trump's first time targeting law firms linked to Democratic causes. Earlier in March, he issued an executive order against Perkins Coie, another major U.S. law firm which had been involved in opposition research against him during the 2016 election. Perkins Coie had commissioned Fusion GPS to compile the infamous Steele dossier, which made unsubstantiated claims about Trump's ties to Russia. The firm also faced allegations from the Trump administration of unlawful diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) practices. In February, Trump similarly revoked the security clearances of 2 lawyers from Covington and Burling, a firm that had advised special counsel Jack Smith during investigations into Trump's actions. Covington defended its work, but did not contest the order in court. These actions collectively signal Trump's broader strategy of retaliating against firms and individuals perceived as adversaries or aligned with past investigations against him. Reactions to Trump's new executive order have been swift and divided. Legal experts have voiced concerns that the move represents a troubling trend of weaponizing executive authority to silence or punish political opponents. Paul Weiss released a statement criticizing the order, pointing out that Pomerantz had not been affiliated with the firm for years and condemning the decision as politically motivated. It came as no surprise when the law firm Perkins Coie launched a significant legal challenge against the federal government, filing a lawsuit in response to the executive order issued by President Donald Trump. The order, signed the previous week, seeks to revoke security clearances for the firm's attorneys, restrict firm employees' access to federal buildings, and terminate federal contracts held by the firm. The lawsuit, filed in federal court in Washington, argues that the executive order is not only retaliatory, but also unconstitutional. Perkins Coie's attorneys assert that the order infringes upon the fundamental principles of justice and violates the First Amendment by discriminating against the firm based on political viewpoints. They stress that the order's sole intention is to suppress those who advocate perspectives contrary to Trump's administration. One critical argument presented in the lawsuit highlights the outdated nature of Trump's grievances. The attorneys central to the controversy, those whose work appears to have drawn Trump's ire, left Perkins Coie years prior and made up only a minute portion of the firm's vast legal team, which exceeds 1,200 attorneys. The filing emphasizes that punishing the entire firm for the past actions of a few former employees is not only legally indefensible, but also fundamentally unjust. Perkins Coie's legal team also points to the immediate and significant damage the executive order has already inflicted on the firm's operations. They report that several clients and potential clients have severed ties with the firm, citing fears of being associated with a politically targeted organization. The financial repercussions are described as severe, with the firm's revenue and overall financial stability already compromised. The lawsuit bluntly characterizes the executive order as an illegal act of retaliation rooted in personal vendetta rather than legitimate governance. Attorneys representing Perkins Coie argue that the order fundamentally contradicts the constitutional protections afforded to legal advocates, including the right to represent clients without fear of political retribution. The filing calls on the court to immediately block the executive order, labeling it a blatant abuse of presidential power. Perkins Coie contends that the order violates the First Amendment by punishing the firm for its perceived political affiliations and legal work performed on behalf of democratic causes. Moreover, the firm argues that the order undermines the core principles of the American adversarial legal system, where attorneys must be able to advocate vigorously for their clients, regardless of the political implications. This latest legal clash follows a long history of antagonism between Trump and Perkins Coie. You might also remember that in 2022, Trump filed a sprawling lawsuit against the firm, along with Clinton, FBI officials, and other defendants, alleging a vast conspiracy to fabricate the Russia investigation. That suit was ultimately dismissed, but it exemplified Trump's broader strategy of pursuing legal action against those he perceives as political enemies. The recent executive order appears to be a continuation of that approach, using the powers of the presidency to directly target a law firm that played a pivotal role in high-profile cases unfavorable to him. Perkins Coie's attorneys are adamant that such actions cannot be allowed to stand, warning that permitting such an executive order to take effect would set a dangerous precedent where political power is wielded to silence or intimidate legal advocates. U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell blocked a similar order against Perkins Coie, declaring it unconstitutional. Judge Howell further explained that this ground is a personal grievance that President Trump has already attempted to pursue in a personal lawsuit that was dismissed in its entirety by a court in the Southern District of New York. To the extent that this executive order appears to be an instance of President Trump using taxpayer dollars and government resources, Howell said, to pursue what is a wholly personal vendetta. Advancing such political payback is not something which the government has a cognizable interest. This precedent could potentially influence the legal battle Paul Weiss is preparing to mount. In a strongly worded statement, the firm's representatives characterized the order as an affront to the Constitution and warned that it set a dangerous precedent for targeting legal professionals based on their clients or political affiliations. The backlash has also extended beyond the legal community, with some members of Congress and civil rights advocates condemning Trump's actions as an abuse of executive power. Critics argue that this pattern of targeting legal adversaries undermines the integrity of the justice system and sends a shocking message to attorneys handling politically sensitive cases. Despite the pushback, Trump has remained defiant, defending his actions as necessary to protect national security and maintain public trust. He pointed to what he described as harmful practices and partisan bias within these firms, arguing that they had worked to undermine his presidency and judicial integrity. Trump has publicly stated that the firm's actions amounted to a betrayal of American interests, emphasizing his commitment to holding accountable those he believes have acted unethically. His supporters argue that these measures are long overdue, viewing them as a necessary counter to what they see as a legal establishment stacked against conservative interests. They also argue that the actions of firms like Paul Weiss and Perkins Coie during and after the Russiagate investigation justify the administration's decision to cut ties and revoke security access. Legal experts predict that this new witch hunt focused on legal bodies will not only test the boundaries of executive authority, but also challenge the extent to which a president can take punitive actions against legal professionals based on past political disputes. If the legal bodies are successful in finding a way through Trump's executive orders, it could send a strong message about the independence of the legal profession and the fundamental constitutional protections that shield attorneys from government reprisal. Conversely, if the executive order is upheld, it could embolden future administrations to wield similar tactics against perceived adversaries, further blurring the line between political power and justice.